Thank you for joining us for our Young Professionals Committee sharing session. I know that some chapters do have young professional committees already in operation, and I know that some people on the call from chapters, they may be exploring the idea of creating a young professionals committee. So the purpose of this sharing session is for us to be able to come together and collaborate, share insights. I'd also like for us to discuss some challenges and, possibly solutions for those who may have explored YP committees, and to just get a feel to see if what you could do next steps as we move through just furthering developing and bridging the gap between our generations that we have. So with that being said, our goal is to create space for collaboration. So I just want to make sure we all feel heard and everything. Feel it's pretty informal, so feel free to raise your hands, come off mute. If you put some emojis, and I have my teammates in the chat, they'll be monitoring that to throw out questions and everything. So I just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to get whatever it is off their chest, and so that we can really just collaborate together. So with that being said, I'm going to throw out our first poll, and these polls do not come with prizes. Let's see, I hope it's coming up for you all, just questioning whether you all currently have a Young Professionals Committee. All right, I see about 69% say yes, and we have 31% who say no. All right, so that means we have lots of good insight here. All right, for those who currently have young professional committees, I want to ask, how do you define that? Is it based on age, time in profession? Is it a manager focus? So, what determines being a part of the young professional committees for those who do have committees?
I'll hop in here.
Okay.
I believe ours is by age, and I think it's 37. And it's not subject to one's particular like industry, I'll say vendors or managers. We're just a mix of all of us. We do try to have like no more than two in the same job or role. Mike Miller's on here from our chapter as well. So him and Brandon, who's also on our chapter, work at Sherwin, or Brandon works at Sherwin-Williams. Mike works at Florida Paint. So two in the paint industry, we've got two in insurance, and we try not to exceed that.
Got it. Okay. All right. Those again, another question for those who currently have committees. Do you have uh, those members who may be new in the profession? Because uh, typically when you say young professionals committee, it's in my experience is typically about 40 and younger, but I know that oftentimes you may have those people who join your chapters and they may be in a career shift. Are there any chapters online who have that membership in their committees?
We, in Nevada, we originally started off the Young Professionals Committee as a 40 under 40 kind of little networking group. But just recently, after our most previous luncheon, it was the committee recruitment day. And I had a couple of like newer board members come up to me asking if they could join, who were over that age. So that's a current push that I'm doing on my end to try to loosen up the standards a little bit and let some more people in.
All right, thank you for sharing. That is a point that I do want to make, that a big component of having these committees is to help bridge the gap between those generations. And many times you have now we're seeing a generational shift in membership because you have those professionals who are older and they're retiring. But you also have those younger professionals, especially those in management companies and BP members. They're eager to connect, they're eager to learn, and they're eager to grow. And it's really important to understand that they engage differently. So a YP committee can serve as a bridge in creating that community, fostering leadership development, and really just strengthen those long-term membership retention, those retention efforts. So that's something to consider if for those who may not currently have a YP YP committee. You don't want to just label it just for those with the age requirement because, as I mentioned earlier, some people they're shifting gears in their careers and they're looking for new opportunities. And you could very well have someone who's over the age of 40 that's in your YP committee because they're new to the profession. So that is something to consider when you are writing out those charters and establishing those policies and making up that committee. A question for those who currently do not have young professional committees. What has sparked your interest in creating one? And also, have there been any challenges in the past to get it off the ground if you have tried to get one going? I know we just have a couple who expressed that they do not have committees. So if anyone would be willing to share.
We don't have one. We don't have one yet. I've briefly talked to my board about it. They've shown some interest. And what really got me interested was listening to Scott from Florida talk about his Young Professionals Committee. And it was really intriguing to me because there is a gap there that we need to
Yeah,
close. So
yeah. Some of my
so we're
chapters that
in
I
the
work
very
with,
beginning stages.
yeah, you make a good point, Valerie. Something that I've heard from some of my other chapters who are interested in getting their YP committees off the ground, they find the need because they need to be able to bridge that gap between the younger members, and they're having challenges with connecting with those younger members. And so that YP committee can serve as a bridge point for those connections. Also, as far as building that pipeline for leadership development. So, oftentimes our committee members, they go on to be chairs and different chairs, they go on to serve on the board. Um, that is a benefit as well as being part of a YP committee and also having them in place. Um, for those going back to who currently have YP committees, or would you be willing to share any of the challenges that you did face so that we can keep that in mind for those who may be looking to start their committees?
So, Alicia, our Young Professionals Committee, we call it PULSE, which is an acronym for Professionals United to Lead, Serve, and Engage. And it's a lot easier to shorten it to PULSE. Has been around for maybe 5 or 6 years now, and it's been successful. We've had a great group of people. They're really engaged. I mentioned in the chat, we started a emerging leaders under 40 recognition, but the committee feels a little bit listless. I don't think that they know what their purpose is, and I think they're looking to really redefine what they exist for. So, we put it together with a certain idea, but it's not really working the way we had originally intentioned, or we had originally planned. And so we're talking with the committee themselves to say, what do you guys feel like you should be doing, and how does that help the other young professionals in the industry, and how does it help the chapter at the same time? So we're really rethinking the whole setup. So we may start including people who are new to the industry and maybe over the age of 40. That's not something we've done in the past, but we're open to all kinds of ideas now. Part of why we're here today, to hear what everybody else has to say.
Got it. Okay. Morgan, I do see your hand up. Michael, I am going to throw out another question for you. Do you feel that the committee has sort of lost I don't want to say its way, but its sight because there's a conflict of what they should be doing in terms of whether it should be social events or community service projects, or what is that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that we we had done a community service focus early on, and kind of moved away from that. And now that the newer committee members really want to make that a big part of their focus again. So I think that's something we're going to return to.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Morgan, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yes, this is Morgan from the Atlanta chapter. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry, I'm driving as well.
Well, be
I was
careful.
gonna, yes, I got two hands on the wheels.
Okay.
So I've been a part of our young professional group. We started it about 3 years ago. We actually, when we first started it, we had it at 35 and under, and then we discovered that we have a lot of business partners in that age range. But once we were looking at managers, um, there wasn't many that really fell in the age range. So we actually recently upped ours to 45, which might be slightly a little high, but try to encompass more of the folks who are kind of newer to the industry, not necessarily age-wise. But our group's been super successful, and just one thing I was gonna suggest or point out that has been our most successful thing is we did a speed networking event at the beginning of the year. We have a bunch of new faces, and it's a great way for people to quickly connect with the whole group and then be able to see each other at our larger chapter events and, you know, have a familiar face to sit with at a luncheon. So that would be my one suggestion is speed networking has been a success for our chapter.
Or anyone else would like to elaborate for any challenges they've experienced for those with committees? Tyler, I see you've come off mute.
Yeah, I got one. So I agree with what Michael said. We have really had we're going on to our second year, so we're still very new in Nevada. And we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. Uh, you know, we start this off, and our first group activity that we start doing are quarterly coffee meetups, where we bring a vendor, one of the more senior members of the chapters to come out and talk to us, and kind of give us a little bit of direction to how we could be going forwards and within CAI and the industry as a whole. And then there's another challenge of retention in the committee is something that I've been facing since I took over for our last chairperson who had too much work going on and couldn't maintain that responsibility. And it's something that a lot of us younger members have where we're so low on the totem pole that we kind of have a lot more that we need to be doing that doesn't give us as much time to devote to the committee.
I can understand that. I think, it's important to keep in mind that there's no one size fits all model for these YP committees. The structure really depends on the chapter size, the membership makeup, the available resources. And I do know some chapters, they tend to focus on social networking more, while others emphasize that professional development or community service aspect. So it's just important to figure out what works for you and what you have the bandwidth, because you're still working professionals. We understand you all are volunteers, which we are grateful for. But you don't have the time oftentimes. So it's really important to keep that in mind and to work with what you have. Danny, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I think one of the things that we struggled with at the beginning of our committee forming at the beginning was attendance at meetings. And it's still something we struggle with from time to time. But at the beginning, it was like via Zoom. And even now when we have Zoom meetings, like the participation is significantly lower than when we meet in person. And just making those meetings a little fun. Like there's not one meeting. Our meetings are in the morning. Someone brings donuts, coffee, cookies to every meeting. And it's more of like us hanging out and putting our ideas together. We also try to focus on 2 educational events a year and then 2 fun events. We really, and Mike and I were just talking about this, we really do try to encompass, we are the young professionals. So whatever we do has to be fun, as well as it can also be educational. So exactly what you'd expect from a young professional to have fun. Like we do trivia, industry trivia, vendors send in their questions. It could be about paint. It could be about management. It could be about electrical stuff, but we're in our Halloween costumes because it's in the month of October. So our goal is always to put a fun spin on whatever the event is.
Danny, I
you.
have
I
a
think,
question.
yeah.
Alicia,
Yeah.
Can I ask a
Go ahead.
question to Danny? So you mentioned that your committee does 2 educational events, 2 fun events a year, and that's kind of what you're responsible for as the committee, I'm guessing, to plan. Whenever you do those for the chapter, is it only young professionals that are invited to those events? Or are
No.
the young professionals are putting them on and it's open to all members?
It is open to all members, and we're actually having an event next week. And we actually partnered with the business partner committee, and it's actually open to everybody. Like it's a trunk or treat for the kids. So we sent it, I run a management company in Sarasota. So we sent it out to all of our communities. Families are coming, vendors are bringing their kids. CAI members are the only ones that we're allowed to sponsor it, but usually our events are open to all of the members and then encourage them to bring a guest. So that helps with new members joining the chapter as well.
Thank you.
I'm going to pivot back to the events. I'm curious to know, for those who do have committees, I've put a new poll up. How often does your YP group meet or hold events? Just out of curiosity for those on the call. Right, it was half and half, about 45% monthly, 55% quarterly. Okay. All right. Did anyone else have anyone before we move on more towards, I see Mike Miller, meet monthly, quarterly events open to the chapter. Okay. I did have another question as far as the sustainability and setting expectations for this committee. Mike, I know you're with the West Florida chapter, and Scott actually shared with me a while back because we were talking about YP committees while we were at CED retreat. And he told me the story of the first event and how, if you don't mind me sharing, hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot since I kind of did. He shared how that first event, he felt like afterwards he was just left with doing everything and the expectation hadn't been set. They had a fun time, great time. And then afterwards he was there doing all the cleanup and doing everything and handling stuff where they had kind of you were told that, oh, we're going to do this. But then that second year, I think the same event happened and it was a complete 180. And he just gushed over how well in the following year the expectation had been set. So it kind of piggybacks off of what Danny said. Well, it has to be fun. And myself as a young professional, I like fun, especially when it's something that I'm volunteering for. So yeah, that keeps me going to my extracurricular things that I volunteer with. But would you mind elaborating if you have anything to add as far as setting the expectation for these committees? So it's not just fun, but we are here for a purpose and to make sure that we are aligning with the chapter's mission.
I think what he's referring to is our annual cornhole tournament. And yeah,
Awesome.
it has been a challenge in the past getting everyone rowing in the same direction. I mean, Danny, how many people do we have on our committee? 12, right?
Yeah, now 12.
Yeah. So, you got 12 of us out there and it's like herding cats, someone running registration, someone, selling drink tickets, people helping with the scoreboard, people helping clean up afterwards, Um, and it really just came down to assigning people specific roles. Look, you're on the committee, we're all adults, we're all here to work, but we're going to have fun at the same time. Here's what you actually need to be doing during this event and just holding each other accountable.
Appreciate you sharing. For those who may have tried, there anyone who has actually tried to start a YP committee and it wasn't able to get off the ground? A show of hands from any of those chapters that are on. I don't see any hands raised. Okay. My question was going to be more so with sustainability and if you've had any issues as far as setting those expectations and anything. Would anyone else like to elaborate as far as setting the expectations for the committee? Do you have a charter in place? Are we working on vibes or do we have a charter that we're going with? Do all those with committees have charters and everything in place? See Mike shaking, Tyler, charter. Yeah, okay. I was going to recommend, I'm not sure if it was put in the chat or not, if for those who may be considering having a young professionals committee, um, I can I'm going to ask Lawrence to drop into the chat a sample charter that we have that could be really instrumental in helping you to help set those expectations, to really just keep at the forefront what the purpose of the committee is, so that you're not just operating on vibes, that you're actually able to achieve what it is that you have for. Let's see. I see some things coming up in the chat.
Hey, Alicia, Lawrence did drop in, he dropped in a charter for a committee, as well as one of our chapters had a task force. And Morgan, I don't want to, I know you're driving, so if you're not able to come off mute, that is totally fine. But I think yours started out more as a task force in Georgia, and then maybe recently you've moved it towards a committee. So if you're able to come off mute, I would love to hear like why it started out as a task force and then kind of what made you decide to move it to a committee.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a pretty large chapter, and our board had been talking about young professionals probably for 2 to 3 years before we started the task force. And honestly, one of the main reasons we did it as a task force at first instead of a true committee was just some of the, I'll say, rules and guidelines we have with committees. Since this was like such a, let's test and see how it goes, we figured a task force was kind of a better starting point with the training wheels on. It allowed us to not necessarily have a budget that we had to make a income from our events, and just we had different rules that we didn't have to follow to be a specific committee. In our chapter, you can business partners can only be on one committee, but since this was so new, business partners could be on this task force and a committee. So it was really more of a brainstorming, you know, group of why is this needed? How do we reach out to the folks, get them a part of a listserv so that we can get them the information of our specific events and kind of tailor it to, we're trying to have fun, but we're trying to, do all these education type things as well. Once we saw the success with it and how many folks were interested, and how many people were coming to our events, that's when our board made us an official committee. So then we have specific rules as a committee that we have to follow, like attendance rules, budget requirements, and little things like that.
So almost a trial basis before you become a full-fledged committee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then we have a
Michelle,
charter as well.
okay,
Just answering your last question.
which is good to have. Michelle, I did see in the chat you were interested in having it, but you have a lot of you've gotten your committees down in number. So maybe that could be something you could consider as far and to see if it will actually work before you make it a full-fledged committee as considering a task force. I'm just looking over the chat. Okay. As oh, did you come off mute again, Morgan, or did I hear someone else?
Yeah, I was just going to say when we had our task force, it was smaller than our committees typically are, only because we used our task force as also like an outreach group. Different business partners know different managers know other managers in their company. And really, we used that first year just to create like a listserv or a list of people who wanted to be interested in our specific events. Because there was a lot of people who just didn't know that this initiative was starting, but they were interested.
All right. Thank you for elaborating on your task force. Again, I think that could be a very sort of a trial basis to get you started to see if it works. Because with anything, you've got to have people there to commit the time and to commit the brain power and the work to get it off the ground and to work. One other thing I wanted to have was as far as collaboration and integration. It deals with ensuring that the YP committee is aligned with chapter leadership and the mission. So how do you, for those with committees, how do you ensure that the committee does not operate in a silo, that the YP committee is just not out here just no one knows. So do you have a liaison to the board? Because the most successful groups are integrated into the chapter's overall leadership framework, from what I'm hearing, and from what I've talked with those chapters that do have longstanding YP committees, and they have liaisons to the board. They are able to collaborate on events, and they serve as a pipeline for future leaders. So I think that is something important to keep in mind, is because most young professionals, they're interested and in gain those leadership skills so that they can move up. One of the most important things is to recognize we don't know why people volunteer. We don't know what skills people are looking to learn or what they're trying to get out of being a part of the group. So uh, just curious of how you integrate with the chapter boards and other groups.
We do have a chapter liaison that attends most of our meetings. And then we have a co-chair and a chair, and it's 2-year term, so one of them will roll off. But our board liaison has been the same for the last few years.
Yeah. Let's see, Michael, I'm reading your comment. All your committees have a liaison, assistant staff liaison, and a board member liaison. The pulse is covered, is what you're telling me. And so the board liaison serves on your pulse committee and chaired it before joining the board. So she has experience in institutional knowledge and group. That's always a win when you have that person with the institutional knowledge. Uh, definitely a win. Definitely a win. I think Danny, you mentioned you previously partnered with your business partners committee. Or there might have been someone else, but have any of you all with committees, have any of you all been successful as well as partnering with other committees, or would you like to share of anything that they collaborate on as far as events or initiatives? No, no partnerships with any other committees. I'll double check the chat. No partnering yet. Okay. That was from Tyler, Nevada. So
I will say partnering is a lot more work than just handling it ourselves. This is our first time partnering with the business partner committee, and we were just at our meeting on Tuesday, and I'm like, this is going to end up being a YP event, which is totally fine. You just pick up the pieces. But it seems to be way easier just doing it ourselves, but partnering is a great experience overall. You get to work with people that we wouldn't necessarily work for on a regular basis.
okay. What do you feel brings up the challenges with that? Is it just an alignment, like a manpower on one side, or just here,
I feel
YP,
like
you take it?
I feel like we run a tight ship on our YP committee, and that's like, it's so laid back. So I feel like that's a bad term for it, but we do have a budget or a goal that we need to, like, we plan all of our sponsorships. How much is that going to cost? How much is that going to bring in? We partner with a local not-for-profit, and then any proceeds that we make from that goes to that whatever company we have chosen. So we really take it upon ourselves. We take our own minutes, we send out our own agendas. Like the YP committee runs itself. It seems like the business partner committee is not necessarily like that. So it was just like a learning game. Like, okay, they don't really do this all by themselves. They have help from the chapter itself. Scott is amazing. So probably Scott, where Scott's pretty hands off with the YP committee members. We've got, like, if you miss 3 meetings, you're out of the chapter. If you're not benefiting, like if you're not part of the team, then we don't necessarily need you. We do have a waiting list to get onto our YP committee because we prefer to keep it tight knit, but everybody has a hand in the pot and everybody is helping.
As you said, you have 12, correct?
12 currently. Yeah, it got
12
up to
total.
15 at one point, and that was like, there were a few people that just weren't showing up, and nobody necessarily like caught on to it because there was too many of us.
So the work was being done.
Yes.
Which is always the best part. That's the best part. Okay. All right. Let's see. I want to throw out some more questions. We'll actually take more questions from you all, specifically from those who don't have committees. If there's anything specific that you were looking to gain from, as far as learning more about resources to help you get started, if we could throw that out to the group. So if anyone who does not have a committee that's interested and would like to explore that or has a question. No questions. So we're going to have YP committees up and running next week. Everybody. And they're all going to be fully sponsored every event. Just boom. Then my work here is done.
Alicia,
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for coming off, Pam.
Sure. I'm just interested in this because I'm on the board of our chapter and I'm the membership liaison or chair. We're trying to get things going really well. But I was curious what drove this, because I have been noticing in our chapter we have a lot of younger managers, and I've been thinking about how to address that. And that's what intrigued me about this call today. But what did it come from national, or were there chapters out in the hinterlands who decided, hey, national, you need to help us with this? Or, you know, I mean, I see the value of education and networking as the purposes, and have fun. I mean, you know, to connect the next generation of property managers. So I'm just curious as to what drove this from the beginning.
Sure. I would say a bit of both. And then Emily, I see you came off mute, so if you'd like to elaborate as well. I'm a chapter liaison, so I hear from my chapters that don't have committees and they're interested, how do you do this and what can we do? So more so it's just getting the groups that have committees as well as those that are interested in having committees together, because also, those who do have committees currently, they always seem to be interested in what can we do to make it better and how, the sustainability aspect of it. So that was more so the purpose of the call. Emily?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And we did a YP. I think we did this last year as well. And really, it was a couple of the chapters who have pretty strong YP committees, and they were wanting to learn more about, you know, how, like Alicia said, how they can make it better. The other thing is we've seen how successful it is in some chapters. And I know West Florida with getting future leaders within the chapter. I know one of the people on their board has kind of come from the YP committee. In Georgia, they have just seen explosive growth in their chapter. And when I ask Tina and Caitlin, the chapter staff, about it, they really attribute some of it to the YP committee and the excitement that they're bringing to the chapter. So we just thought it would be good to get all of you together to talk, especially, you know, those who are interested in doing it, also to kind of hear why, you know, it's working in some of the other chapters.
Well, I noticed that Michael had said they've had theirs for about 3 years or something. So I figured there's been some history, like the national meeting or something else that drove it. So
I'm
Yeah, we say,
interested,
oh,
kind of taking your question in a different way, Pam, too. Like, how, why did you all feel like there was a need to create a YP committee? You know, for those of you who have already done it, like, what was the need that you were trying to fill? Was it to get them more connected? We kind of talked on that earlier. Or was it to get them, you know, help them become leaders in the chapter?
That would be my goal. Bringing in future leaders. Some of the, it's not me, but some of my board members refer to themselves as dinosaurs in the industry. So it would be great while we have these dinosaurs that they could help train and teach and, you know, guide. That would be my thought. But just listening today, it's kind of, it seems like different chapters are doing different things. In my mind, I wasn't imagining doing like actual networking events, because I feel like they could all come to I have a lot of networking events. So I feel like they could all be coming to all of my networking events and meeting people. I was just envisioning, I'm honestly not sure what I was envisioning. Just meeting with the those 40 and under and hearing what they have to say about our chapter and listening for changes, you know, bringing our chapter into the future as well. Because are we doing things that we've been doing year after year? Yes. It would be great to have new, fresh perspective. That's kind of what I had in my mind. I'm not necessarily doing events because I have a boatload of those.
so more so of a focus group type of
Yeah,
insight
that's
aspect for
is
you. Okay.
anybody doing that? Is anybody using this particular committee as like a focus group?
Not necessarily. The closest that we get in Nevada is just our quarterly coffee meetups where we're talking to the industry professionals or between ourselves if nobody shows up, talking about, certain issues that we've all been facing in the industry and how we overcome it. We had a extensive talk a couple of sessions ago where we were talking about AI and the big scary robots that are coming to take us over and how we could properly use that in our jobs and kind of come together with how can we contribute something back to all of these people who are giving us all of this mentorship opportunities. So then we started our own educational series called the Digital Age series and go over some of the more current advancements in technology that some of our, as you said, Valerie, some of our dinosaur members might not be too familiar with, and kind of help them out while they're helping us out.
Alicia, I thought of another question that I get from chapters a lot when starting a YP committee or just a challenge. And that is, I was working with a chapter a couple weeks ago on strategic planning, and they were like, we don't really need a YP committee. Same thing. They can just come to our events. We're engaging them through that. Do we really need to separate the ages? That sort of thing. And have any of you had to overcome any of those kind of concerns or pushback from your board when creating this committee or task force? That's good if you haven't. I know that a couple
Right.
of our chapters are dealing with that, right now, in being able to move forward with one.
Tyler put a good point in the chat. He said that a big issue in terms of planning events with the YP committee, and I would imagine this being with any committee, especially, I know Nevada has a lot of committees. You all's liaison, so yes, I talk to Chris often, but it's trying not to step on the toes of other committees that have outreach things going on and who have, their own community service, their own mentor development or things, just their own events going on, especially with the chapter as big as Nevada that has a lot of things going on. But even so, despite the size of the chapter, I'm sure that could be an issue with anyone, just making sure you don't step on any other committee's toes and trying to maintain that balance. That could be pretty hard. I know that would be a challenge.
I think to go off of Tyler's point and what Valerie was saying, like you already have so many events. I think maybe if you do join or create a YP committee for your chapter, like having that YP committee help support those events that are already being put on, because eventually we call them OGs, but the dinosaurs like will not have as much energy as they did. Like you've got to pass that knowledge off to somebody. So having your YP committee support the already existing committees and they share the knowledge, you make connections. I will say I think events and event planning are like the only reason, I don't want to say the only reason we have committee members, but like it's something that they look forward to. And we do focus on developing skills of the people that are on the committee, of the committee members. Like if you're a little bit shy, we're going to put you out there, not make anybody uncomfortable, but put you in a position where you can work on your public speaking skills, or it really is like a stepping stone to another committee. It just
Hey,
opens the door for those connections. Sorry.
oh no, you're good. You're good.
I have a quick question. I'm curious. I don't have this in our chapter, a young professionals committee. So I'm curious, do you feel like it's pretty business partner heavy, or do you feel like there is a mix of business partner and managers that participate on the committee?
We have a pretty good mix. I don't think we have any homeowner members, but we do have a good mix of managers and business partners.
And that was my follow-up question. I was curious. I was like, do you have homeowners who try to get into the mix, and like what role do they play?
Yeah, no, our homeowner leaders are our biggest membership, but they're also the least active in committees and going to programs and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Somebody mentioned earlier about the events and something about the cost to make them happen or whatever. So do these interest groups like this get to make their own money to support events and activities, or is it part of the chapter support? And then if you plan events and you invite the whole chapter and there are fees involved, where does that money go other than to the expenses?
I mean, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, but all our events, you know, the money goes to the chapter. You know, beforehand, we do a good job of gathering cost estimates. You know, how much is it going to be to rent the venue, any licensing, whatever, the costs that we might incur. And then, you know, when we're getting the sponsors, you know, we're pricing everything appropriately. We're hyping it up, you know. If there's fees involved with people to attend the events, you know, but then that any money that we make above and beyond that isn't donated to charity is
Yep.
going to the chapter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Michelle, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I had a comment about the money. We don't have a YP committee, but all of our events, the money goes to the chapter with two exceptions. If an event or an activity at event, if the money was designated for legislative action committee, then that's a donation. But also our community outreach committee does their own fundraising to keep that money within their committee because they do a lot of giving back for certain organizations. So they'll like sell. We have a custom trail mix bar that one of them built and brings to our luncheons and sells a bag of custom trail mix in the lobby. Or it's California, so when fruit's in season, you can buy like a box of oranges, or they'll probably do pumpkins next month. So they get those donations from various places and then sell that, but they keep that money in their committee. Those are the only exceptions. So I could see with a YP committee how if they were fundraising for a very specific thing, they might keep that money.
Does anyone have anything different, or are we all pretty much on the same as far as with the monies and stuff for the events, or any other questions? Or in general? Okay. I'll do one brief look at the chat to make sure I didn't miss anything. We still do have about 15 minutes left on the scheduled call. So if there are any other insights that if anyone would like to share, or anything that you feel would be good for a potential committee to know before starting, please feel free to elaborate on that or come off mute. Emily, I see you came off mute.
Yeah, Alicia, I was sorry to put you on the spot, Deanna. I just thought of this and I didn't get to message you in time. But we actually just launched a mentor program, CAI did in the last several months. And so this might be something that your committees could leverage as well. Deanna, would you mind just briefly sharing about the mentor match?
Yeah, so the mentor match lives on the exchange, and it's available to all members for free. You just have to sign up, you get to put in your interests, your demographics, and you can reach out to mentors that fit your needs. And as soon as you start the relationship, you get to meet with them as often as you'd like. You get to determine how long you want the relationship to last. And it's been really great so far. I've been getting a lot of great feedback that people are just getting their needs met and really getting a better understanding of their role and how they can grow. So yeah, if anyone has any questions on that, they could shoot me an email and I can help you guys sign up if you need help. But it's pretty self-service based. So yeah.
And it's all membership categories, right, Deanna?
Yes, all membership categories.
Great.
I
Thank
have
you.
a question, somewhat related. I was wondering if any other chapters have other affinity groups, so like young professionals, but if you have something like, if you have a women's, like women professionals or LGBTQ or like Black professionals, if you have any other affinity groups in your chapter.
We don't yet, but I'm certainly open to it.
You do some women specific events, though, right, Michael? I think you just put in the chat about like a
Yeah,
women's
that's
golf
correct.
outing.
We do what we call the Ladies on the Links golf outing. It's a 9-hole golf outing specifically for our women members. And that's part of our Pennsylvania LAC runs that. So all the revenue goes back to the LAC. It supports their efforts.
I do know Dallas chapter and the West Oregon chapter, they do something similar. It's specific, it's not a specific group, but it's they do specific events for the ladies. Golf and sort of like a day conference, I believe, for West Oregon. But I can look into that and confirm with Laura for you, Michelle.
Michelle, I know the New Jersey chapter has a women's group and a program that they do every year that I think they call Conquer and Connect or Connect and Conquer, something like that. That's a women's specific program. It's been really successful.
All right, just wondering. I don't know that any of these honestly will work in my chapter, including the young professional one, but I like the idea of like very early on in here when you guys were talking about um well, bridging the gap, but I think that we sort of like flounder in including young people and just assume that they'll come to stuff. But I think that they definitely uh, can inform us differently about how they would like to participate in the chapter if we give them a more formal way to do it.
I think that's really important to prioritize is just asking them like how are you best engaged? What are you looking for as being not just a member of a potential committee, but being a member of this CAI chapter? I think that's important. What are you looking to get out of your membership? You know, especially for those young professionals, you know, are there any specific skills and just having those conversations? Doesn't always have to be a formal survey. It can just be those touch points just so you can get an idea. And then I think that'll help you better gauge if this will work for the chapter, Michelle. Right. We still have about 10 minutes left. Leah, so you came off mute?
Yeah, I do have a quick question as I'm processing this for my chapter. We also have an ambassadors committee, which typically helps with new members or new to the industry members to help them, a lot of times it's with managers, designations, and things like that. But I'm just kind of wondering, have you guys faced that like these, if you have both of those committees or these type of task forces, if they kind of work together on some of that, if you feel like one kind of has taken over the other? I'm just trying to process that right now because I'm like, I already have this. Should I change it into young professional? Should I keep it separate?
Our chapter has both, and I feel like they don't cross over at all. Just because, and maybe it's just our area that we live, but there's a lot of older people here. So a lot of the outreach that we do on the ambassador committee is not necessarily to new people joining the industry. It's just somebody who's recently heard of CAI or they just got on the board in their association. And I feel maybe I'm wrong here, but we don't do a lot of outreach like YP. They just kind of come to us. So our ambassador committee really brings them in. We invite them to breakfast. And then from there, we make introductions wherever we think they'd be the best fit.
Okay. And I love the mentorship program too. I'm going to introduce that to my ambassadors. I think that's a great concept, but I was just kind of like trying to figure out how they work together. And I see your comment too, Michael. That's helpful.
Some of our chapters have like quarterly or even twice a year have their committee chairs get together and just kind of collaborate and talk about what they have coming and if there's any opportunities for them to collaborate together on events too.
That's what I was going to mention. Some of mine, they sort of have a informal committee retreat in a sense where they just sort of get together and get on one accord, kind of map out what they're planning to do with their tent and everything so they can avoid stepping on toes so they're not doing the same thing because essentially you don't want to create the wheel for some things, especially if you have two committees and you're concerned about that overlap. So I have seen that be successful for some chapters early in the year so they can kind of map out the year. All right. Last call for questions or insight, comments, tips and tricks of the trade.
Alicia, I'm going to put your email address in the chat if that's okay, so that those who we don't have charters from for your YP committees, we'd love to have those so that we could share with other chapters who are interested. We currently have, I think, the West Florida and the Georgia chapter. So, and Alicia can put those on the toolkit. So that would be awesome if you guys could share.
Yes, because that definitely goes back to my point of no YP committee is the same. It's not a one size fits all. You all are different chapters, different membership makeups, different sizes, different areas, and everything. So that's important to keep in mind if you do want to go and explore the route of creating a YP committee so that you're not trying with the expectation of, oh, I'm going to be just like that chapter because you each are all unique. And I can attest that all of our chapters have their own sort of personality and their members are very different. And so, which is the great part about having local chapters. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well. But we can help each other and everything. So I think it's important to explore those charters and to see what works for you with the ultimate goal of making sure we align with the chapter's mission. Right. Well, if there's nothing else to add, this will be recorded and sent out to those, especially if anyone asks, to those who may not have been able to attend. But I do want to thank you all for your time in the middle of the day or late morning, depending on where you are. And I hope that the discussion has been useful. And I do appreciate those sharing their challenges as well as their success stories with forming and sustaining these committees. My email is in the chat, but also if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your chapter liaison or someone on the chapter's relations team, and we can do our best to help you. So with that being said, I will let you have the remaining 6 minutes of this part of the day.
Thank
I'll see
you.
you all.
Thanks,
Have a good rest
Alicia.
of your day.
Bye.
Y'all take care.